She said, I need a life that fits mine. He does that, while walking away confidently. For a couple of seconds I didn't move. It was like my brain lagged behind my eyes, still trying to process what I'd just heard while my body stayed planted on the cracked footpath outside the bar. The wind tugged at the hem of her coat as she turned, heels clicking against concrete, streetlight catching the copper in her hair. She didn't look back. She just merged into the Friday night crowd, past the smokers huddled by the door, the guy arguing with the bouncer, the couple laughing too loudly, like she was stepping through some invisible doorway into the version of her life where I didn't exist. My fingers were clenched so tightly around my car keys that the metal bit into my palm. I had this stupid, irrational thought that if I just called her name the right way, she'd stop, hesitate, come back, and say she didn't mean it like that. But the only sound that came out was a small, pathetic exhale, the kind you make when you realize the thing you've been afraid of for months is actually happening. It was a random Thursday when she said that to me, outside a bar we used to love when we were younger. I'm 33M, she's 31F, and we'd been together just over 6 years. Long enough that we'd done the whole cycle. Meeting, falling in love, moving in, talking about the future, fighting about the future, pretending we weren't fighting about the future, and then whatever this was, her choosing a different future entirely. I guess I'm writing this because my group chat is done hearing about it, and my sister keeps oscillating between she's trash and you'll find someone better, and none of that touches the part of me that's stuck replaying her sentence like it's a song I hate but can't turn off. Her name is Erin. I still catch myself almost texting her sometimes when something stupid happens at work. Habit is a cruel thing. We met in the most cliché millennial way possible, at a friend of a friend's birthday in a too-loud bar. I'd almost bailaid on the night because I'd had a long week, and my idea of fun has always been more board games and takeout than shouting over EDM with overpriced drinks. But my friend Alex guilted me into going. Dude, you never come out, he'd said. You're becoming one of those guys who talks about grabbing a drink sometime and then disappears into spreadsheets forever. I don't even work with spreadsheets, I'd protested. You know what I mean, he said. Just come, there'll be cake. The promise of cake and the fear of being that guy got me there. I noticed her before anyone introduced us because she was the only person in the bar who looked like she was genuinely having fun, not performing it. She was at the end of the big pushed-together table, telling some story with her whole body, hands flying, head thrown back when she laughed. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun with one of those patterned scarves threaded through it. She wore a faded band tee and red lipstick like armor. At one point, someone tapped my shoulder. Ben, this is Erin, Alex said. Erin, this is my mate from uni, the one who fixed my Wi-Fi at 2am and saved my marriage. That's a strong claim, I said. Internet porn is crucial for marital harmony, Alex replied solemnly, and Erin snorted. Nice to meet you, Wi-Fi savior, she said, offering her hand. Her handshake was firm, no limp fingers. I always noticed that. We ended up talking at the bar while she waited for her drink. She asked about my job, software engineer, then immediately followed up with, so what do you actually like about it? Which threw me more than it should have. I don't know, I said. Solving problems, I guess, making stuff work. It's satisfying when something finally runs the way it's supposed to. That's kind of hot, she said casually, like it was a neutral observation, and my brain did a small blue screen. What about you? I asked, trying to sound like a person not short-circuiting. I work in theatre, she said. Well, work in theatre makes it sound like I'm more important than I am. I'm an assistant stage manager for an indie company, which is a fancy way of saying I run around backstage making sure everything doesn't fall apart in real time. That is important, I said. Shows don't happen without someone doing that. She smiled like she appreciated that answer. Exactly, she said. I hate being on stage, but I like being the reason the stage works. We talked about favorite plays, then favorite TV shows, then favorite childhood snacks. Time did that weird thing where an hour passed and I didn't check my phone once. That never happens to me. When the bartender finally managed to get to us, she ordered a gin and tonic and I, in a moment of sheer bravado, said, "Can I get whatever she's having?" Even though gin and I had a fraught history. Wow, she said, reckless. I live dangerously, I said deadpan. She laughed. I like you, she said, like she was talking to herself more than to me. We exchanged numbers at the end of the night. She typed hers into my phone under Erin, chaos, as if I'd know more Erins in future and need the distinction. Our first date was very her and very me at the same time. She suggested a pop-up open mic night at a community theatre. I suggested a quiet coffee first so we could actually hear each other. We compromised by getting coffee at the theater cafe an hour before the event. She showed up late, carrying a tote bag full of scripts and a half-eaten packet of biscuits. "Sorry, rehearsal ran over," she puffed, sliding into the chair opposite me. "One of the actors decided today was the day to discover method acting." "I don't know what that means, but it sounds exhausting," I said. "It is," she said. "Tell me about your day." No one had ever said that to me on a date with that level of genuine interest before. It's usually trotted out as a formality, then people's eyes glaze over when you say the word API. But she looked at me like my boring admin tasks were plot points. I told her about a bug that had been haunting our team for weeks, and how we'd finally tracked it to a single misplaced character in a huge block of code. "Wow," she said when I finished. "So you're basically a digital detective. No one has ever made my job sound that cool," I said. "Stick with me," she replied. "I'm amazing at branding." Looking back, I think that was one of the core dynamics between us from the start. I saw myself as someone ordinary. She saw me as more than I gave myself credit for. She saw herself as too much. I saw her as exactly enough. We slid into being a couple over the course of a few months. It wasn't one big conversation so much as a series of small decisions. Leaving a toothbrush at my place, inviting me to her friends' parties, me learning which snacks to keep in my cupboard for her late-night post-rehearsal visits. By the time she officially said, "So my friend asked if you're my boyfriend," and I didn't know what to say, "What do you think?" we'd already been acting like we were in something real. I loved the way her life was messy in a way mine was. Her schedule changed every week depending on rehearsal times and shows. She'd text me at 11:30 p.m. "We're striking the set, want to bring pizza and see the chaos." I'd show up in my hoodie and watch as she zipped around the stage with a roll of gaffer tape, shouting directions, laughing with the crew, hair escaping its bun. "You're like a storm in human form," I'd told her once, as we lay on her mattress on the floor, bed frame still on the list, eating takeaway from the container. "And you're like a weighted blanket," she said, popping a prawn into her mouth. "Is that good?" "It's very good," she said. "Storms need somewhere to land." At first, our differences felt complementary, like puzzle pieces. I had a 9-to-5 with regular income and predictable hours. She had a series of gigs, contracts, side hustles, and an ability to stretch $40 across a week of groceries with creativity and beans. When her bank account dipped into double digits, I'd quietly cover more of the dinners out. When my brain went into overdrive about some work problem, she'd drag me out for a walk by the river and force me to talk about something that wasn't code. We moved in together after 3 years. Not because of some grand plan, but because her roommate decided to move to London. My rent was creeping up, and we were spending most nights together anyway. We found a small, slightly damp apartment above a laundromat. The constant hum of machines downstairs became the soundtrack to our life. "This place has character," she said, standing in the empty living room on the day we got the keys. The walls were a weird yellowish white, the floorboards creaked in at least 4 places, and the kitchen window looked out onto a brick wall, but the light in the bedroom was beautiful in the late afternoon. "It has mold," I said. "Character," she repeated, grinning. We painted the walls, bought plants we pretended we'd keep alive, argued about whether mugs should go handle up or handle down in the cupboard. On good days, it felt like we were building something. On bad days, it felt like we were playing house in a space too small for both our lives to fit comfortably. The fit thing started as a joke. One night we were in bed scrolling through our phones, and she showed me a meme about datting your opposite sign or something. "Look," she said, poking my arm. "It says fire signs shouldn't date earth signs or they'll feel like they're being buried." "Which am I?" I asked. "You're probably earth," she said. "I'm definitely fire." "And is that bad?" She thought for a second. "Nah," she said. "If the earth is soft and the fire's controlled, it's like a candle. Nice, warm, not a bushfire, we fit." It was cute then, comforting even. Fast forward a few years and she'd stopped saying, "we fit," and started saying, "our lives don't match up." It started small, little comments. When my alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. and I rolled out of bed for work, she'd groan and pull the doona over her head. "Your routine is assaulting my soul," she'd mumble. When I said I didn't want to go out on a Wednesday night because I had an early meeting Thursday, she'd say, "Sometimes I feel like I'm dating a 45-year-old. When I suggested we start putting a bit of money away for a house deposit, she'd joke, "Wow, mortgage chat. Sexy," and then change the subject. None of those things in isolation felt huge. We'd bicker, then kiss, then move on. but somewhere in there, the difference between us stopped being a personality quirk and became a mismatch, at least in her eyes. To complicate things, her career started to take off at the same time mine plateaued. A director from a bigger theatre saw one of the productions she'd worked on and reached out. Suddenly she was getting offers from more established companies. More money, still not heaps, but more. Tour, longer runs. Her world, which had previously been local and scrappy, started expanding. She was doing shows in other cities, staying in cast housing for weeks at a time. I was proud of her, genuinely. I went to every opening night I could, bought flowers, cried when she did her little pre-show pep talk backstage, and all the actors looked at her with this mix of admiration and fear. But our daily lives started to diverge. When she came home from a 3-week run in another city, full of stories about after-parties and new friends and midnight ramen, I'd be there with my meal-prepped containers and my tailies of office politics and bug fixes. She'd hug me tight, and for a while it felt like that was enough. "Tell me everything," I'd say, and she would, words tumbling out. "Tell me about you," she'd say afterwards, and I'd try, but half the time I'd feel myself editing down because I didn't want to sound boring next to her stories of drunk playwrights and almost disasters avoided at the last second. "It's not a competition," she'd say when I got quiet. "You know that, right?" "I know," I'd say. "It just feels like you're living in color and I'm not." "I like that you're not chaos," she'd reply. "My whole work life is chaos. You're the only person I can come home to and not feel like I'm still at work." We clung to that idea for a while, that our differences were still good, that we still fit, even if the edges were rubbing raw. Then she met him. His name is Dylan, 34M, director/creative director/whatever title theatre people give each other when they're both artists and managers. I knew who he was a full month before I ever saw his face, because Erin started every other sentence with, "So Dylan said." Dylan thinks the set should be more minimal. Dylan says the industry is shifting toward immersive experiences. Dylan reckons we'd kill it in Berlin. At first I didn't think much of it. People talk about colleagues all the time, especially if they're working on intense creative projects together. You're in the trenches, you bond. The first time I saw them together was at an opening night for the show she was assistant directing. Dylan was, unsurprisingly, also there, tall, in a black turtleneck that would have looked pretentious on anyone else, but somehow worked on him. Hair in that artfully messy style that looks like it takes more effort than my entire morning routine. "Ben, this is Dylan," she said, practically vibrating with excitement. "This is the guy I told you about, the one who did that production of Hamlet in the abandoned swimming pool. Dylan, this is Ben, my partner." Partner's not boyfriend. I clocked that in the back of my mind. Dylan shook my hand with the easy confidence of someone used to being the most interesting person in the room. "Nice to finally meet you," he said. "Erin talks about you all the time." "Hopefully only the flattering stuff," I joked. He laughed. "Mostly," he said. "She did tell me about your spreadsheet obsession." "It's not an obsession, it's structural support," I said. Erin laughed. "He has a spreadsheet for our groceries," she said to Dylan. "Color-coded. I love him, but sometimes I feel like I'm dating a very organized app." The way she said it strung a little. Everyone laughed. I did too, because what else do you do? Throughout the night I watched them, not obsessively but enough. They had a shorthand already, eye contact across the room, finishing each other's thoughts when talking about the show. When someone made a joke about the theatre world being a lifestyle, not a job, they both nodded in unison like disciples. Driving home that night, Erin talked about Dylan for a solid 20 minutes, how he'd fought for her ideas in production meetings, how he'd told her she had a director's eye, how he'd suggested they pitch a show together for the next season. "He gets it, you know," she said, staring out the window, city lights smearing into streaks. "The way the work sort of bleeds into everything. The weird hours, the obsession, the fact that your friends are also your colleagues. He's like, of course you're exhausted, but we're building something." "Sounds like you make a good team," I said. "We do," she said. The fit thing came back a few weeks later, in a fight in our kitchen over something stupid. I'd cooked dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread, and she texted an hour before she was due home. "Dylan wants to run the scene again. I'll be late, don't wait up." I did wait up. The pasta congealed in the pot. By the time she came through the door, it was past 11 p.m. I was on the couch, laptop open, but not doing anything productive. "Hey," she said, toeing off her boots. "Sorry, it went long." "I figured," I said. "Food in the fridge." She dropped her bag a little too hard. "You're mad," she said. I'm disappointed, I replied. I told you I was cooking tonight. You could have called. Her shoulders tensed. I texted. You texted, don't wait up, I said, which is not the same as I can't make it, sorry, can we reschedule? She sighed, walking into the kitchen, opening the fridge, staring at the Tupperware like it had offended her. This is my job, Ben, she said. Things go over, timelines shift, that's how it works. I know, I said. I'm not mad that your rehearsal ran long. I'm mad that I found out via a 3-word text while I was draining the pasta. It takes 2 seconds to say, hey, I know you cooked, I'm sorry, can we do this tomorrow? She slammed the fridge door shut. You act like I'm doing this to you, she said, like I'm out having fun and intentionally ditching you for kicks. That's not what I said, I replied, feeling my voice rise despite myself. I just want to feel like our plans matter too, like my time matters, like I'm not always the flexible one. She laughed, but it wasn't amused. Your time is flexible, she said. You clock off at 5 and that's it. You can plan. My life isn't like that. It never has been. You knew that when we got together. I did, I said, but it feels like the gap, getting bigger. Like your life is this whirlwind, and I'm standing on the edges holding out a plate of food hoping you notice. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. This is what I mean when I say our lives don't fit, she said quietly. The word fit landed between us like something physical. Explain, I said, bracing for whatever was coming. She chewed her lip, choosing her words. Your life is structured, she said. You have your job, your gym days, your Sunday laundry, your meal prep. It works for you. My life is not structured. It's seasonal and chaotic and full of last-minute changes and late nights. And I'm tired of feeling like the chaos is always wrong. Like I'm failing at being a good partner because I can't slot into your routine. I'm not asking you to slot in, I said. I'm asking you to meet me halfway. That's exactly it, she replied. Halfway for you is sometimes I don't know what time you'll be home. Halfway for me is I plan my entire life 3 weeks in advance. They're not the same distance. We went around in circles that night, me trying to articulate that I wasn't trying to tame her, her trying to articulate that she felt tamed anyway. We went to bed annoyed, backs turned. The next morning, she kissed my forehead before I left for work, and we pretended the argument had dissolved. It hadn't, it just went underground. Over the next few months, she and Dylan grew closer. She mentioned he'd gone through something similar with his ex, how his work schedule had driven them apart, how his ex had wanted a normal life, and he'd resented being framed as abnormal for wanting to be at the theater every night. He gets it, she said again, a lot. She and I tried to course correct. We did a couples workshop thing one weekend because I sent her a link and said, maybe this could help us communicate. She agreed, mostly, I think, because she didn't want to be the one who refused. We sat in a conference room with 8 other couples and a woman named Heather who said words like love languages and attachment styles. We learned that I skew anxious avoidant and she skewed anxious. We did exercises where we had to say things like, when you do X I feel Y and what I need is Z. It was uncomfortable and slightly cringy, but some of it landed. Afterward, sitting in the car, she said, I know it feels like I'm always chasing some big life and you're just there. I don't want you to feel like a placeholder. Do you? I asked. She hesitated. I don't know, she said quietly. Sometimes I think I'm waiting for my life to start, and sometimes I think it already has, and I'm missing it because I'm staring at the door. I didn't know what to do with that, so I did what I usually do. I made a plan. Let's make your life fit more, I said. Like practically, if the problem is schedule and architecture, we can adjust those. We could look at apartments closer to your theater. I could ask about flexible hours. We can travel more in between your shows. We can design this better. She looked at me with this strange expression, half fond, half sad. You always want to fix things, she said. I want to fix us, I said. She leaned over and kissed me. I know, she whispered. We did try, for a while. I started going to more of her industry events, even when I felt like a prop. She tried to actually put things in a shared calendar instead of telling me about them at the last minute. We succeeded about half the time. But Dylan was always there. I'd see his name pop up on her phone at midnight. I'd hear her laugh at a text and then go quiet when she noticed me looking. When I asked carefully if something was going on, she'd say, we're just friends, Ben, colleagues. You don't get this world, but he does. That doesn't mean I don't love you. I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative hurt too much. The week everything finally snapped was, ironically, not particularly dramatic. No affair reveal, no catching them kissing backstage, just an accumulation. Erin had been offered a chance to assistant direct a show overseas. 6 months in Berlin, unpaid, but with housing covered and the promise of exposure and connections. Dylan was going too, as co-director. She told me about it sitting on our couch, legs tucked under her, face flushed with excitement. "This is huge," she said. "This could actually change things for me." "That's incredible," I said, and I meant it. "Wow." "And terrifying," she added quickly, scanning my face. "I mean, it's 6 months in another country, with no guarantee of what happens after. I don't know if I can do it." "Well," I said slowly, "what do you want?" "I want to go," she said without hesitation. Then softer, "I don't want to lose you." There it was, the thing we'd both been circling. "We could do long distance," I suggested, because of course I did. 6 months isn't forever, she grimaced. "You hate phone calls," she said. "I can learn to like them," I said. "Or at least tolerate them for the sake of not losing you." She let out a shaky laugh. "You make it sound like I'm some exotic bird you're trying to keep on a branch," she said. "I'm trying to keep us alive," I replied. We went back and forth for days. Pros and cons lists mine. Intuitive what does your gut say? Exercises hers. She cried, I cried, we hugged, we yelled, we went silent. Finally, she said, "I need to decide this based on what's right for my life, not based on what I'm afraid of losing." "Okay," I said, "what's right for your life?" She didn't answer then. A few days later, she texted me while I was at work. "Can you meet me at the junction at 7? The junction was the bar where we'd first met. Full circle and all that. My stomach dropped. When I got there, she was already outside, packing. She had that focused, almost serene look she gets before a show opens, when everything that could be done has been done and now it's just time to see how it plays. "Hey," I said. My voice sounded weird to my own ears. "Hey," she echoed. We stared at each other for a second. People streamed in and out of the bar, laughing, shouting, living their lives around us like extras. "I said yes to Berlin," she said. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said, "we can figure it out. That's the thing," she said quickly, cutting me off. "I don't want to do long distance." The words hit like a gut punch. "Right," I said, "so what do you want?" Her eyes were wet, but her mouth was set. "I want a life that fits mine," she said. "I want to be able to say yes to stuff like this without feeling like I'm blowing up someone else's world. I want to stay up till 3 am arguing about staging with someone who doesn't have to get up at 6:30. I want someone whose entire rhythm doesn't clash with mine." "Erin, I've said I'll adapt," I protested. "I'll fly out to visit, I'll shift my hours. She shook her head. "It's not just about this show," she said. "It's about everything. You want stability, a house in a few years, maybe kids, a dog that doesn't shed. You like knowing where you'll be next month, next year." "And you do?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "Some days I think I do. Some days I think I want that with you. And then something like Berlin comes up and my whole body lights up, and the idea of saying no, because it would mess up our Sunday routine, makes me feel resentful and trapped and like a terrible person." "You're not a terrible person," I said. "I feel like one," she replied, "because there's Dylan." There it was, the other shoe. My mouth went dry. "What about him?" She looked me straight in the eye. "He fits this life," she said simply. "He's going to Berlin too. He lives and breathes this world. He doesn't flinch at 2 a.m. tech runs. His idea of a future is the same as mine right now. Shows, festivals, bouncing between cities with a suitcase and a laptop and a rehearsal schedule. When I talk about that stuff with you, I feel like I'm asking you to come into a life that will make you miserable. When I talk about it with him, I feel like I'm describing his life too." My ears rang. "So what are you saying?" I asked, even though I already knew. "I'm saying," she swallowed hard, "I can't keep trying to stretch you into a shape that fits a life you didn't sign up for, and I can't keep pretending I'm okay shrinking my life down to fit something safer. I need a life that fits mine. He does that." There was a split second where I almost laughed, because it sounded like some pretentious line from a movie. Then she turned, started walking, and I realized this wasn't a script. This was my actual life splitting into a before and an after. She left that night, not physically right away. She came back to the apartment, packed a bag, cried in the kitchen while I stood by the fridge not knowing whether to comfort her or myself. But that sentence outside the bar, that was the moment she stepped out of our relationship. Everything after was logistics. It's been 4 months since then. She's in Berlin. I know because sometimes our mutual friends post pictures from her Instagram. I see her in rehearsal spaces, hair tied up, laughing with people in black clothes. I see Dylan in the background in some, hand on her shoulder or them sitting close, heads bent over a script. I muted her account after the second accidental glimpse, because my chest couldn't handle the way something could look so right for her and so wrong for me at the same time. People have had opinions. My sister is firmly in the she's selfish and impulsive, and you dodged a bullet camp. She chose a guy she barely knows over the man who has literally been there for 6 years, she said. How is that not insane? She does know him, I said weakly. They've worked together for ages. Work together is not the same as live together, she retorted. Talk to me when she's crying over German bureaucracy and missing your color-coded grocery lists. My mum is more gentle. Sometimes people grow in different directions, she said over tea. It doesn't mean you weren't good together. It just means you want different gardens. Alex, the friend who introduced us, kept it simple. She wanted a touring indie theater life and you want not that, he said. That's not a crime, it's just shit. The part that's been messing with me isn't even the existence of Dylan, if I'm honest. It's that sentence. I need a life that fits mine, he does that. It sits on my chest at night. It crawls into my brain when I'm doing the most mundane things. Loading the dishwasher, answering emails, booking my annual leave. I keep wondering what she meant exactly. Was I a life that didn't fit, or a person that didn't fit? Are those different? Does it matter? My therapist, yes, I finally got one. Her name is Melissa. She has soft cardigans and a way of waiting out my silences, has been making me pick that sentence apart. What does a life that fits mine look like to you? She asked in one session. I thought it was this, I said. Us, a small apartment, 2 careers, too many plants, arguing about chores, the occasional holiday if we saved enough. I thought we were fitting it as we went. And for Erin, she asked. For her it's being able to say yes to Berlin without feeling like she's betraying something, I said slowly. It's late nights, constant motion, living out of a suitcase, having a partner whose job is as flexible and unstable as hers so there's no imbalance. Do you want that? I didn't even have to think. No, I said. The idea of not knowing where I'll live in 6 months and depending on short-term contracts for rent money makes my skin itch. Melissa nodded. So when you say she left you for a life that fits hers better, what you're also saying is she left a life that fits me. I sat with that for a while. It doesn't make it hurt less, but it makes the hurt less personal, I guess. It would be easier to frame her as a villain, to say she was cruel for waiting until Berlin was on the table to jump, to point out that she let something grow with Dylan while still telling me she loved me. All of that is true, to some extent. She could have been braver earlier. She could have drawn a line with him instead of wading into emotionally murky water. But it's also true that she spent years trying to bend herself into my world. She came to my boring office Christmas parties. She listened to me vent about Jira tickets. She tolerated my 10 p.m. bedtimes and my insistence on having a savings account. In the end, I think we both hit our limits. She hit the limit of how much she could compress her life into the shape of normal couple heading toward mortgage and maybe kids. I hit the limit of how much chaos I could accept without losing myself. Dylan just happened to be standing where her life was already pointed. Maybe he truly does fit her world right now. His job is tied to the same nights and seasons. His colleagues are her colleagues. His ambition matches hers. They can pack up and move countries with the same shrug. That's a powerful pull. The hardest part for me has been untangling. He fits her life from he's better than me. My brain wants to go there automatically. It plays comparison games. He's more artistic, more spontaneous, more interesting at parties, probably better at understanding her monologues about characters and lighting and symbolism. Melissa keeps dragging me back. Better for her right now is not the same as better as a human being, she says. You were the right fit for each other at one point. That doesn't get erased because the story changed. It's weird mourning a future that you weren't even entirely sure you wanted. Because if I'm honest, there were moments I fantasized about a life that didn't include me feeling like I was constantly trying to keep up with someone else's adrenaline. There were nights when she'd come home buzzing from tech rehearsal, and I'd be bone-tired from work, and I'd think, we are not in the same movie. And yet I loved her. I still do in that dull, residual way love sticks around after the person is gone. I loved the way she saw possibility everywhere. I loved the way she made boring errands fun. I loved that she danced in the kitchen to songs she half remembered, offbeat but enthusiastic. But I also love that I can now go to bed at 10 without feeling guilty, that my weekends are mine, that I can say no to a spontaneous 1 a.m. karaoke trip without it being a referendum on my personality. I'm slowly filling the space she left with things that actually fit me. I joined a climbing gym because a friend dragged me along, and unexpectedly I liked it. There's something satisfying about focusing on a single route, using your brain and body together, not performing for anyone. I started cooking new recipes instead of defaulting to the 3 things she liked. I bought a plant and actually read about how to keep it alive instead of trusting her chaotic green thumb. I haven't dated yet. The idea of trying to explain this whole mess on a second date feels exhausting. My last relationship ended because her life and my life wanted different things, and a guy with better-fitting chaos showed up. Doesn't make for a cute anecdote. But I think when I do start dating again, I'll be paying a lot more attention to this fit thing from the beginning. Not in a checklist way, must like spreadsheets and hate Berlin, but in a do our default settings line up enough that neither of us has to amputate huge parts of ourselves way. I want someone who thinks Friday night might mean cooking together and watching a movie or going out, not someone for whom staying home feels like punishment. I want someone whose idea of the future involves some kind of home base. It doesn't have to be a white picket fence and 2.5 kids, but I don't want my 40s to be a blur of sublets. And I want to be that fit for someone else too. I don't want to be the guy a woman dates when she's trying to calm down, only to leave when the next shiny opportunity appears. I want to be chosen for who I am, not in spite of it or as a temporary antidote. So yeah, that's the story. She said she needed a life that fit hers, and he did that, and she walked away confident, because she'd finally aligned her inner story with her outer choices. I stood there watching, keys digging into my palm, feeling like someone had just told me I was the wrong size for a shirt I'd been wearing for years. If you've read this far, I guess I'm asking, has anyone else been on either side of this life-fit breakup? Did you leave someone because your lives genuinely wanted different things? Did you get left like I did, for someone whose world matched better? Did it end up being the right call? Right now I'm somewhere between angry and understanding and sad and relieved, depending on the day. I don't hate her. I don't exactly wish her and Dylan well either. I just hope that next time, for both of us, we choose people whose lives don't have to be stretched beyond recognition to make room.